For decades, Pokemon fans have tried to track down the rarest possible Pokemon cards, and recently, we thought we found it. Pokemon prototype cards. These are cards that are just so legendary that a single one recently sold for $300,000, and the largest lot went for a combined amount of $5 million. But what if I threw this out there? What if I told you that they're all fake? There's recently been a shocking discovery that's rocked the Pokemon TCG world to its absolute core. And honestly, if what I tell you turns out to all be true, this is going to change the Pokemon card landscape forever. Alright, buckle yourself in because I'm about to explain the craziest thing that's happened in Pokemon cards that I can actually remember. And this all started with a single post on a popular Pokemon forum known as E4. A user by the name of Teddy Orsor actually mentioned on this forum that he found something strange when he saw a printed sheet. He always noticed if you looked at the HD scan, you would see these dots on there, almost looking like a barcode. Intrigued by this comment, another Pokemon card collector known as PFM decided he wanted to look further into this. And what's really cool is I managed to get an exclusive interview with PFM himself, the person that broke this entire discovery for today's video. Now, he didn't want to appear on camera, and that's completely fair enough. So I got my good friend J-Love to read out his answers word for word. So when you hear J-Love talking, that is word for word what PFM has said to me. Also, side note, check out J-Love, amazing Pokemon content creator who's also made a good video on this.
At first, I tried it with a digital microscope on one of my copies and I could see it was there. I found that images available on some online auction sites were high enough resolution too, which enabled me to check many different cards.
And what he tracked down was mind-blowing. These microdots actually contained a bunch of metadata, including the groundbreaking bit of information of when the document was printed and where the document was printed. And the kicker is, these prototype cards that are meant to be from 1996 had the printing date of 2024. That's right, the original prototype Pokemon cards that were meant to be from 1995 were printed in 2024 according to these dots. And what's even more nuts is that timeline matches up exactly when all of these prototype cards started to flood into the market. Now, to understand why this is such a big deal, let's go back to explain exactly how these prototypes came to be. Obviously, the Pokemon franchise started in 1996 with the release of the video games. You had Pokemon Red and Pokemon Green over in Tokyo, Japan. After the massive success, Pokemon actually wanted to replicate the magic of Magic the Gathering. So they won their own TCG game, obviously. So when developing a trading card game, you obviously need to have playtest cards. So you want to test out the game. And they called these alpha cards. And what they would do is they would just slap on the sprites from the original video games on these cards, and then later on they would get actually, the artwork that we see on the cards today. But the original alpha cards just had sprites from the games, and that's how they tested this TCG game to see if it would work. And for obvious reasons, all the collectors thought they tested out the game and destroyed these cards. No need to keep them, they then made the base set. That's logically what everyone thought. 2024 came along and Akaban, one of the original developers, began selling his entire personal collection right here. And some of these cards had never been seen before. Now obviously, he didn't have these cards graded, he just had the prototype cards, he would sell them. Collectors were in a frenzy to get a hold of obviously the coolest thing in the world, prototype cards. They would get the raw prototype card and grade it to get it authenticated, and most of these got graded by CGC. And if you win the Pokemon card community last year, you obviously know what happened. The prices of these went to the moon. Everybody wanted a prototype card, and fair enough, they look pretty cool. I'm not sure it's bad to say, but I still think they're awesome. I still kinda want one. Now, I know what you're thinking. Alright, I've heard everything. All those playtest cards are fakes. We don't know what happened, but they're all fake. That's what you're getting at with the video. This is where the story gets even crazier and it gets a little bit deeper. So put your thinking hat on because I need you to bear with me. Because not all of these prototype cards are actually said to be fakes. We gotta source out the real ones. So, according to PFM, most beta playtest cards carry the 2024 printing date. And then the Delta cards that were also released, they got the same issue, printed in 2024. Even some of the Alpha cards have the 2024 printing date. This is just crazy. They were all printed in 2024. But it gets even trickier because he says the beta cards came in two variants. a high quality and a low quality variant. And the low quality ones have the 2024 dots, but the high quality ones don't have any dots. And look, this could be for a magnitude of reasons. Some printers don't even print QR codes on their printouts, so that's obviously number one. However, PFM actually discovered that at least 4 of these alpha playtest cards right here have the microdots that can decode all the way back to 1996, including the massive Pikachu and Charizard, which were purchased by Macro Anime Collection for $400,000. But finding out that the rest were fake, that seems really uncommon that these were real. So, as PFM puts it,
the default stance I would take is to assume a copy is not real until you have evidence otherwise.
Now, I hope you got your hard hat and shovel ready, because we're about to dig even deeper and talk about the signed prototype cards that got authenticated by CGC. Now, PFM isn't making any accusations at all, but he found some of the autographed prototype cards who were autographed by the Pokemon TCG creator himself, one of the founders of the game. These autographed cards were not only signed by him, but were then authenticated and created by CGC, contain the 2024 printing dots. Which I guess raises a couple of questions on my end. I'm curious, how didn't we catch this sooner? But I guess a year later isn't too bad. But also, what does it mean for the future? When we asked PFM about CGC's role in all this and what he thinks, he actually responded with,
"This is a better question for the grading companies than for me. CGC has some articles about these cards if you want more information."
So as you would expect, the Pokemon card community is in turmoil. Over $50 million of these cards were listed and sold throughout the past year. And I think the part that blows my mind the most is some of the victims of the most experienced and high-end Pokemon card collectors I've personally ever met. You've got TCA Gaming. He had a Charizard. There's a Chinese collector who lost millions of dollars on these fake Pokemon cards. Now, obviously the whole situation has a lot of people looking at CGC. How did they authenticate all of these fake Pokemon cards? And as of a couple of days ago, CGC actually released a statement that you could send in your fake Pokemon cards, they will have a look at it, see if they can determine if it is a fake one, and then go from there. Leaving a lot of questions in the air. What do you think about this response? Also, this guy, the original developer of the game, is under intense scrutiny. Now this is where it gets really tricky because obviously a lot of the cards he sold were real, and then some of the forgeries are linked back to his personal collection. And it has everybody questioning, was he involved or was he just a victim of this scamming that's going on? And literally every day it feels like there's another gem uncovered in this big ongoing investigation, which is wild. But more recently, they've even found uncut sheets matching the past forgeries, which means they've found sheets of ultra rare Pokemon cards with the same printing dots, meaning that this might even be bigger than the Pokemon prototype playtest cards themselves. This is now turning into uncut sheet territory, which is massive. And even more money that I probably will never see in my life. Like, I couldn't even wrap my head around how much collectors are paying for these items, because they're ultra rare things that any collector would love to have. And every time one of these scandals comes out, I always wonder, oh, it's gonna take a bit for the Pokemon card community to bounce back from this one. But this seems like a doozy. I can't believe it. The more and more I read about it, the more I'm in shock. Now, I'm sure if you do own one of these prototype cards, you're not watching this video, you've already found out the information, you've been researching yourself. But if you do own one of these cards, we asked PFM, what would you do? And he says,
just hold the cards for now and keep up with any updates from CGC or wherever you bought them from.
And that's pretty much where the investigation sits at the moment. A lot of unanswered questions, but I still find it wild that one discovery that PFM made about these little microdots that are on printings has uncovered a wealth of information. So I wanted to ask my final question to PFM, how did you discover this? And did you know about these microdots beforehand? Did you know much information?
I basically knew nothing about the dots before, and I read online articles and even published literature in academic journals to figure out what was known. Frankly, it's a really understudied field.
And that's really cool, the fact he did all this research and just uncovered everything here. Anyway, this story is far, far from over. So let me know your opinion of this elaborate scam in the comment section below. I want to read every single comment today. And if you want to follow up to this really interesting story and video, I would love to do an interview with maybe a couple of the collectors that own these prototype cards and how they're feeling. One of my good friends, TCA Gaming, Rusty, owns one of the Charizards. I think it would be interesting to talk to him. I've seen a few videos he's done on it. Let me know. I'm shocked. I can't believe this is a real thing. Have a fantastic day and yeah, keep on gaming. Watch out for the dots.